This last and final video answers the question, did literature influence society, or did society influence literature? I personally think that the answer is pretty obvious, that society as a whole was the influence to literature. Nearly every book that I can think of was written about something that has already happened, not something that we know will happen, or something that was written and then influenced something to happen after that. Grapes of Wrath, for example, was written about the exodus to California during the Dust Bowls and the Great Depression, and not the other way around. It didn't start that. It was a result of that. Hemingway's books were pretty much mostly a result of World War I, and not the other way around. The main objective of books in general is to inform, and really it's hard to do that on something that informs someone on something that hasn't happened yet, or something that we don't know yet. And the great majority of these that have been written are at least based on events that happened or were happening at the time of the writings. The only example that I can think of that might have shaped literature, or that might have shaped society from literature, would be something like Mein Kampf, which could have attributed to the rise of Nazism in Germany. And based on a quote that I saw somewhere, Harriet Beecher Stowe's book Uncle Tom's Cabin could have started the Civil War, which that's a quote that Lincoln said, but I don't know how accurate that is. The stages of literature that we've talked about in class, naturalism, realism, now modernism or postmodernism, all of these, they were the result of an event that happened in society, and not the other way around. Like the Civil War was really what sparked the naturalist movement and signaled a change away from from romanticism, that is. And just as World War I moved us towards modernism, and society, well, it's society and the events that society undergoes that causes literature to change, and not really the other way. The relatively new idea of the internet has, or at least will cause, a totally new classification of literature. Already the medium that books are read on is changing. Nooks and Kindles are quickly replacing paper books, and I don't know how long that will last, but it could very possibly totally replace all paper libraries, or at least make them outdated. And that could easily start a new revolution in literature. As more and more books are able to be published, anyone can have their stories read by thousands or even millions if they have access to the internet. And all this new technology is already shaping the way literature is written and read, and I'm sure will continue to shape that as the future progresses. The Harlem Renaissance made African American involvement in literature much more prominent than it had been before. This, along with the Great Depression, the Dust Bowl, World War I and II, and pretty much every other event that occurred from World War I until the mid-century, pretty much the entire modernist period, changed literature totally. And this all leads to the conclusion that yes, society did and does shape literature, and not the other way around.